understand what the conservation of energy consists of, we must know what energy is. And energy is defined as the ability to do work. There are several types of energy, such as potential energy, which is the energy stored due to the configuration of an object. Another energy is the kinetic energy, that is due to a movement, and the mechanical energy, that is defined as the sum of the kinetic energy and potential energy. Other concepts that we must know are the conservative and non-conservative forces. Conservative forces are those in which the work done does not depend on the path traveled, but only on the initial and final positions. The work done by a conservative force is always equal to the negative of its change in potential energy, and the work done by non-conservative forces depend on the path. And finally, we must know the law of conservation of energy. This law tells us that the total energy does not increase or decrease in any process. Energy can be transformed from one to another and transferred from one object to another, but the total amount remains constant.
Now, imagine that we have a tennis ball in our hand and we drop it from a certain height without speed. When it bounces, it will never bounce up to the height from which it was thrown because it will break the law of conservation of energy. Suppose that the ball has a mass m and it's at distant h from the ground. The position of this object is associated with the potential energy, and when it touches the ground, there is no potential energy. As the ball falls, it acquires velocity and associates this velocity with kinetic energy. So when the ball falls and touches the ground, the potential energy is zero, and all the energy has been converted into kinetic energy because the energy is conserved. So, when the ball touches the ground, part of the kinetic energy can be converted into heat due compression. Now, a more difficult situation with a pendulum is more complicated because it does not hit the ground and there is no heat loss. Let's imagine that we take a pendulum at a certain distance from the ground and let it swing. When it returns to the initial position, it will be at the same height with which it started, and it cannot reach higher height because it will be breaking the law of conservation of energy. This means that when we release the pendulum from a certain point with a speed zero, it will never be able to reach a higher one when it returns to that point. This principle is used to demolish buildings. In this way, all the potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, and the building that wants to be demolished receives the blow with a huge amount of energy at a high speed, causing the said building to be demolished. In conclusion, thanks to physics, very important logical arguments can be obtained that explains why things are and how Walter Lewin says physics works.